also, on the table, Jim has some sign-ups for, Jim, where are you at?
I'm right here.
Come to talk, or go ahead.
Avenue Flags, we're one of their big helpers this year. We need assistance on Saturday. I don't have a time yet, but if you sign up, I'll get you the information. And then on Monday, take down 1600. That's 4 o'clock for civilians.
Next week, Memorial Day.
Yeah, Memorial Day weekend. Okay, and they have over 1,000 flags. That's where they need most help is on Mondays, taking everything down because they have to clear the whole Armona cemetery out from their flags. So please sign up. If you have any questions, see me afterwards. Okay.
All right. Also, just a reminder, we're not meeting next Monday since it is it next Monday? No, Memorial Monday, 2 weeks. Okay, we're not meeting in honor of Memorial Day, so we won't be here. From this point forward, our meetings will be at the Elks Lodge until the weather cools off. Our current location, which we love our location, but the air conditioner is not currently working, so we had to move to the Elks Lodge. That being said, we'll pass a can around if you can throw a couple bucks in it, because we went from having a beautiful hosted free place to it's cost us a little money now. If you guys have a couple bucks, pitch in. If not, we'll catch you next week, hopefully, so that we can continue to move on, carrying our meetings here during the heat. And then also, we have a jamboree coming up. It's it's July 2nd. July 2nd, it'll be here. It's basically a party. We're selling tickets. The tickets are $40 a piece. It's going to include dinner, music, dancing, prizes, raffles. It's going to be a big to-do. Last year we sold out, so if you want tickets, let one of the board members know before they're all gone. Also, we're looking for sponsors, so if you own a business, know anybody that owns a business, wants to donate any raffle items, or cash is fine. Cash is king too. All right, we can definitely appreciate sponsorships and definitely mention your business as we move forward. And I think that's it for business. Board members, any more business before we start? Craig, is the live feed going? All right, so what you want to do if you are here in support of Kings County, you definitely want to share your live feed from the 1776 page. That last week's live feed got over 1,000 views, so it's definitely getting out there. You're just not going to reach the 50, 60 people in here. You'll reach thousands if you share that live view, so I want to make sure that happens. If you were here last week, like I said, we had Hanford Fire come out and Hanford PD and basically gave us their side of Measure F, and we definitely want to make it fair and non-biased. So tonight we're going to have Kings County out to speak about also Measure F, but the reasons why they think it's a good idea. All right, so Kings County Fire, if you want to come up, we'll have you introduce yourself. Prayer. Oh, very good. Well, go ahead and come up, though.
And pledge.
Yep, I said pledge.
I'm sorry. All right, Joseph, where you at? Generally, we start every meeting with a prayer. I got a little ahead of myself today. So Joseph's going to start us off with prayer.
Father, we thank you for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and for the salvation you offer the world through him, and for the cross that he bore for our sins. We're so grateful. And besides that, Lord, we're so grateful that you put in the hearts of our founding fathers, as those who signed the Declaration of Independence and moved on to establish the Bill of Rights and our amendments, they were God-fearing men. 28 of them were pastors, and all of them were God-fearing men. And we thank you for that, Lord. And help us, as the citizens of this great country, Lord, awaken all the peoples, regardless of their political affiliations. Help us to stand up for our Constitution's Bill of Rights and our amendments that afford us the freedoms that we have enjoyed, so that they're here for our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, for future generations. We thank you for each soul that's here tonight, for awakening us to the facts that we have to hold our representatives accountable, that the policies that they make affect our lives. In Christ's name we pray, and be with the speakers tonight. Help us to hear from both sides, so we know the issues that are concerning Measure F, so that we can have a more discerning vote. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Richard, will you lead us in the flag salute? Luke.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, go ahead and introduce yourselves one at a time.
My name is Jason Mustang. I'm a captain for the Kings County Fire Service. I've been working for approximately almost 20 years.
Hey guys, my name is Dylan. I'm an engineer with Kings County Fire. I've been here about 5 years. I'm also the treasurer of the Fire Fighters Local.
My name is Mike Cornelis. I've been with Kings County Fire for over 20 years.
Hi, my name is Derek Dominguez. I've been with Kings County Fire for 7 years, and I'm the local secretary.
My name is Jared Soares. I have been with Kings County Fire for almost 15 years.
All right, we're going to give these gentlemen an opportunity to talk, and we're going to be respectful like we were last week. I don't think there's going to be an issue, but let them speak their mind. If there's information that they didn't cover during their speech, then by all means, we're going to ask questions. They've been informed that we'll ask questions after their presentation. And if you're not aware, this is being live streamed, which I'm sure you are. So make sure that if you have any sidebar conversations that have to be had, go ahead and take it outside. The mics pick up everything.
All right, folks, my name is Jason Mustang. Like I said earlier, but I'm also the president. We're here to talk about Measure F. Kings County Fire covers approximately 1,392 square miles. Kings County Fire has 10 stations to serve the public. 2 stations are staffed with 3 firefighters. 2 stations staffed with 3 fires are Station 4, known as South Hanford, and Station 11, which serves the city of Corcoran. The 8 other stations are staffed with 2 firefighters. Kings County runs around 5,100 calls for service a year, ranging from medical, structure, vehicle accidents, hazmat incidents, water rescue, technical rescue, and wildland. We're here to discuss the half-cent sales tax measure known as Measure F. Measure F costs every person in Kings County and outside Kings County that buy goods 50 cents per 100 taxable dollars spent. The measure would increase the current sales tax of 7.25% to 7.75%. In Corcoran, it would take the 8.25% sales tax to an 8.75% sales tax. This computes to 50 cents per 100 taxable dollars spent. Measure F cannot be manipulated. It does not go to a general fund. Measure F has a Citizens Oversight Committee who ensures that collected tax is used how the measure is written. Not for salaries, personnel. 60% of the funds for staffing ranging from firefighters to battalion chiefs and the training of the new personnel, not new training facilities. 20% to maintain emergency response infrastructure, including training centers. 20% to new apparatus, new state-of-the-art, rescue tools, communications equipment, and to help emergency medical response. I'd like to introduce Jared Soares. Thank you.
Hey folks, again, my name is Jared Soares. I do want to thank you all for having us here. Really appreciate what you guys are doing. We're here to talk about Measure F and how it's not really a want, but it's a need for the county, for Kings County Fire. Kings County Fire is originally designed to be funded through property tax, and at the time, the growth in the revenue to accommodate the growth of the department along with the growth of the community was not properly forecasted. At the time, volunteering was a huge part of the department as well as the community, and volunteering has since declined to almost a non-existent program. As an example, our station in Armona, where I'm at, Station 5, when I started there, maybe 6, 7 years ago, we had about 10 volunteers. We have none now. County Fire is also a special district, and is almost entirely funded by the fire fund, with a few revenues in place, mostly of which through property taxes, and we do not receive any money currently from sales tax. And as far as the money itself, I know a couple of main concerns from everybody looking to vote on the measure. One being the county siphoning and misappropriating funds to go where it's not intended to. As Jason Mustang described, that won't be the case. It is written in a way with proper verbiage that cannot be used for anything and cannot replace any current funding. And preventing sort of the issues, as Mustang also explained, there's going to be an oversight committee comprised of firefighters as well as members of the community. And we're looking for people, if this passes, and people like you that want to hold everybody accountable as someone that we would want to be there. So if that is something of interest to you, we'd love to get your name and number to be a part of that when the time comes. I know another issue that's been brought up is a sunset clause. I totally get it. Who wants to pay sales tax forever? The issue with that is we get to a point when it ends. Then what do we do? We just hired staffing, upstaffed everybody to proper levels. We got new engines, established training programs the way we should be doing them. And then as approaches the time when that sunset starts to come, we come back to you and say, hey, we need more money. And you're going to look at us like, well, we just gave you money, why do you need it again? So from our standpoint, the best way to do this is to ask you once and to put us in a sustainable position. Because right now we're not sustainable. We're status quo, we can't grow, we can't move forward. This isn't just a resident tax. We're, like I said, we're primarily funded through property tax. So the question being is, what do we do to increase our funding? Do we just burden the property owners with raising our percentage of the property taxes towards us, or do we ask everybody that comes through the county, visitors, friends, family, anybody that travels through, uses our roads, uses our services, everybody takes a piece and gives it back. It's not just to burden the people that own it. It's a nickel for every $10 you spend. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mike Ornelas. He has some statistics for you guys to kind of give you a little bit more to the right reason.
Hello, folks. My name is Mike Ornelas. I work for Kings County Fire for quite a while. I'm here to talk to you guys. Unfortunately, my portion of the presentation is a lot of statistics and numbers, and I'm really sorry about that. Here it goes. So I'm going to hit on why I believe Measure F is very important to all my family and friends that live in Kings County and to the community at large. So why response times and the ability to conduct our task when you guys call us and do them quickly and do them fast matters. Kings County firefighters respond if there is a fire in a building in all 47,000 homes and over 6,000 businesses in every community, town, city inside Kings County. Also in the adjacent communities just outside our borders, like Riverdale, Waukena, Outlaw, Huron, Glencoe, right? We are the first engine on scene of over 28,000 homes if they were to catch on fire. We're just over 60% of the homes in Kings County and many more nearby outside the county line. Some of you may know, most of you probably don't, that a fire inside a building doubles in size every 30 to 60 seconds, and that growth is exponential. Modern furnishings and products in a home are being made almost entirely of synthetic materials, causing fires to burn 8 times hotter and more dangerously, producing over 200 times more toxins of smoke. A large study was put together just a few years ago by the federal government, Underwriters Laboratory, and some firefighter leadership groups to study what needs to happen and what doesn't need to happen on a fire ground and how many firefighters it takes to accomplish those tasks. This was a landmark study and is what most cities across the country are using to help with their staffing models and their future plans for their fire department. What they determined is there's 22 tasks that need to take place inside a fire, inside a normal single-family home. Those 22 tasks are best undertaken by 14 firefighters. And that's a single-family home that the fire hasn't extended to a nearby car or structure or fence or vegetation, just the home on fire. If the fire had threatened some of those surrounding buildings or was in a larger building, such as an apartment complex, a strip mall, or a commercial building, they recommend 13 more firefighters or an additional 27 firefighters, or a total of 27 firefighters to be on scene. Also, something very few people realize is we have federal laws that require us firefighters to have at least 4 firefighters on scene to go inside a burning home, unless there's a rescue. If there's a person inside and life's at risk, we'll risk quite a bit more. But up until that point, there's no one inside, it's just property. We have to wait until there's 4 firefighters on scene to make entry into that structure. Business, garage, house. And that affects our ability to limit loss. Kings County engines, as Captain Mustang told you, do not have that staffing. We have to wait for a second engine to arrive on scene in order to go inside a home that's on fire. And unfortunately, the way a rural department is established, our stations are 10 to 20 minutes away from each other. That makes us having to wait for those crews to make their way to the scene and inside a burning building, wait an average of about 15 minutes. You can imagine with the fire doubling in size every 30 to 60 seconds, the devastation that can cause. Our department staffing model, when the fire fund was established 75 years ago-ish, was 1 firefighter on each engine. Those solo driver operators was supported by a large group of volunteer firefighters made up of citizens from around the county and the cities inside. And for decades, that provided 100 to 150 volunteers countywide. They show up to fires when they could from their work in their homes. The national standard I was discussing earlier for firefighters and their performance was put together by the National Institute for Standards, and I don't remember the last letter, I'm sorry, it's NIST, UL, Underwriters Laboratory, makes all of our products safe in America, and the National Fire Protection Administration. They suggest we have a minimum of 4 firefighters per engine, and there's some reasons for that I'll get to in just a short moment. I appreciate y'all bearing with me. Out of the 10 engines in our county, 8 are staffed with only 2 firefighters. And only 2 engines have 3, like Captain Mustang said, South Hanford and the city of Porter, who we protect. A quote from that study that struck home with me when I read it was, this study showed clearly that 2-person crews cannot complete the essential fireground tasks in time to rescue occupants. Cannot, in their study. Their study was also done on a 65 to 70 degree day by professional firefighters who have an incredible training program in departments in and around the Washington, D.C., New York City, and Baltimore areas. They're great firefighters and fire departments, and they weren't able to complete the essential tasks needed to effect a rescue of an occupant inside a burning building. They just weren't able to do it, and by quite a large margin. This is especially because the toxins that build up inside those buildings build up too quickly, especially for delicate populations such as children and the elderly. 3 firefighter engines, okay, so that was 2 firefighter engine, now I will do it. 3 firefighters on an engine are 25% more effective on those tasks, and on an average, slightly over 3 minutes faster, and they are, or were during the study, capable of performing those tasks, and they would get them done fast enough to effect a rescue. Should I start from the time point? A department with all 3-person engines, so if our department or any department like Kern County Fire is staffed with 3-person engines, they are also able to, on average, get water on fire about a minute faster than a department that's staffed totally with 2-person engines. 4 firefighters are even more efficient at 90 seconds faster than a 2-person engine. 4 firefighters on engines complete those 22 critical tasks for any structure fire. 4 firefighters on an engine, which is the national standard, can complete those tasks on a fire 7 minutes faster than a fire department staff with 2-person staff engines. And those 4 firefighters, which is the national standard, can accomplish the tasks 5 minutes faster than the 3-person crews. So as more firefighters get on scene, we're able to do quite a bit more work. There are certain things that each individual firefighter can't do very well by themselves, and there are things that working as pairs or in groups of 3s or 4s can accomplish much faster. We'll go over those today. Citizens in Kings County commute to work an average of 46 minutes, and that's per the U.S. Census, and it seems like a high number to me, but regardless, that's the number I found on the internet, so U.S. Census website. Everybody we know spends a lot of time on our roadways, driving to and from work, to visit family and friends, going to church or vacation, or to another town to buy something that they can't get in the town they live in, or outside the town they live in if they live in the country. All of Kings County Fire's engines have an amazing assortment of rescue tools. Some of them are very old, however, and are in need of replacement. But the difference between 2 and 3 firefighters on an engine is huge. And my experience, I spent 15 of my 22 years working at a 3-person company. How I was able to help, and my crew was able to help people when they got these nasty wrecks. 3 people can do such a better job than I'm able to do now with just one partner and myself. We had one last week. I sure wish we had another couple cents a month. So, we have 1 hour to get a person to a trauma surgeon when they're involved in a bad injury like a vehicle accident. Got 1 hour to get them to a trauma surgeon so they can stop the bleeding and prevent the brain from swelling and having permanent injury or death. It's very important to us, and we work really hard to achieve that goal. Speaking of being faster, modern fire engines have the power to get up to speed much faster and also seem to stop much better than our 20 to 30-year-old engines we have now. Many people I've talked to are surprised how much our fleet is in need of replacement. Some of those same people who conducted the large firefighter researches have done research on fire engine replacement times and have concluded with saying we should take an engine out of frontline service and place it in reserve service, and this is all fire departments around the U.S., at 10 years, and retire them all together for being tired and old and worn out at 20 years. 40% of our engines, or specifically 12 of our 28 engines, trucks, wildland engines, are over 20 years old and are at their end of life. An additional 7 are recommended to be placed in reserve status and only to be used when our best fire engines are ready to time of service. So that time I've been speaking, all that time I'm asking to set the timer, that's how much faster a 3-person company can get to a person versus this is how long it can take a 2-person engine company to effect a rescue. And also the exponential fire driver, doubling every 30 to 60 seconds. Only 3 of our engines and stations now meet the national standard of being under 10 years old. In fact, the department has not bought an engine in over 10 years from our fire department. Wildland fire season is fast approaching, and really, folks, it's already here. 45% of our brush trucks, wildland vehicles, patrols, Type 3 engines, however you want to slice it, they all have different names, mean the same thing, are also out of compliance with the national standards for being aged out of frontline service. The ability of our firefighters to escape a flame burn in a fire here in Kings County or out assist with major emergencies is very important to our industry, which widely accepts that those also should not be left up to 25 and 30-year-old vehicles to make sure we don't get trapped by a flame. And we're also able to get where we need to get as quick as we can to limit fire loss and wildland fires. We present these facts. I present these facts as best as I can to try to inform you for the reason for supporting Measure F, to let you know that the current and less than ideal, fully capable state of our department with meeting the needs of the community. I hope that you help us to better help you to fund the budget of this department going forward now and in the future, and not the antiquated way in which it was set up 70, 75 years ago that leaves us hurting for the essential resources we need to provide you and your families for decades to come with a safe and prosperous place to live. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate your patience.
I have a closing statement.
Come on up. Let you see the answers.
Look, folks, this is all of our wise. This is our need. The communities are growing, and we need someone to grow with it. We need to ensure the safety of your friends, your family, and your firefighters are all met. Look in your heart. If you feel we've shown you enough to be confident that the money will not only go to where it said it's going to, but we truly need this to better serve you all, then vote yes. And if you don't, then vote no. Just vote what's in your heart. Just help us give you the services you guys deserve. Thank you.
We're going to move on to the question and answer section. I'm going to go ahead and go first. If you're not mic'd up, then stand. And is someone going to field most of the questions? Or you guys?
It's going to be.
All right. All right. So my first question, and some of these questions were submitted by people that couldn't make it here. So don't. And just so you know, there's not a bias. These questions, I asked tough questions in the last meeting, so there's not a bias for or against, but the questions need to be asked.
Absolutely.
All right, so you guys are asking for 0.5%. Initially, your proposal was to go in with Hanford Fire, right? for a 0.5%. When Hanford Fire when it was not an option to go together, is there a reason why you didn't drop from 0.5% to 0.25% since you would only be supplying money to one department?
Yeah. Yeah, so when the 0.5% was originally discussed, can you guys hear me on the mic? When the 0.5% was originally discussed in our first meeting, which was in 2021, it was all still negotiable. We knew we were going to push this forward at 0.5%, and we just wanted Hanford to have the opportunity, because Hanford City Fire is also in a position where they need another station, they need 3 more firefighters per shift. So we wanted them to have the opportunity to come on board and join us on this measure.
Okay.
0.5% was what we need to be sufficient. We wanted them to come on board and have some discussion of how to split the money and things like that. After those negotiations back and forth, they declined to join ours, and that's where we're at.
Numbers would have taken a bigger hit to go down
We'll take
for ourselves.
Say that again?
We would have lost more money for our budget, which is ultimately the whole purpose of it. And
We're in desperate need for funding.
yeah.
Okay, so the initial proposal was not to go 50-50 with Hanford. I'm assuming the other bigger department, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so it was going to be percentage-wise. If you went down to 0.25%, you would actually be losing money because you were going to get more than half of the 0.5%. Is that correct?
Yes. Correct. The original thing that we brought to them on our proposal, I believe, was 35% for the Hanford City Fire Department. It would have been, what is that? 65% for us. And the percentage that we were going to ask for the community on the measure was still up for negotiation. They preferred to do a 1%. We thought that was a too high of amount to ask for working taxpayers. And we just kind of reached an impasse. And on the conclusion of that meeting, everybody was very pleasant. And we agreed to support them in their efforts. They agreed to support us in ours. Obviously, that's since changed. And they have their reasons behind it.
My understanding from last week's presentation is Hanford Fire elected not to proceed forward because because law enforcement was not included. Is that your understanding?
That was one of the, yes.
It was one of the reasons, but in a different word of phrasing, we just wanted to do a fire-only measure. We thought it would be very receptive from the community. They preferred to do one just with the Hanford City Fire Departments, just the Hanford City Fire and Hanford City Police Department. They were referencing back 2 measures that we put on Measure K, showed that it failed just slightly in the county and it passed just slightly in the city. So they saw that as having more support in the city, so they would do a citywide only measure on themselves, which makes perfect sense to me. That's why we agreed to support them in their cause.
And just to speak of Measure K initially was a 2/3 to pass that measure, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it would have passed. It would have passed by the numbers on a 50+1 citizen initiative by the numbers.
Should the signatures have been collected, which is an important distinction. Signatures are extremely difficult to collect unless citizens and voters particularly feel that the cause is very worth it. It's very difficult to sign your name and signature and address on a legal document in front of a stranger. And so that is an important distinction.
Okay. I think that's all the questions for me. I appreciate you answering it honestly to the best of your ability. And again, it's not an attack of anything, but I think the citizens deserve to know exactly what the truth is and make that decision based upon all the information. And really, that's why we invited both sides out, because the voters need to make an informed decision with correct information and not, what their neighbors are talking about or what they see posted on social media. So I appreciate you guys coming out. But I will take plenty of questions from the audience. I don't have a mobile mic, so you can either, oh, we got one? Thanks, Jeff.
Go ahead. Does anybody have questions on that?
I have one simple question. From what I understand, the incorporated areas are going to pay their share of the taxes, but they're not going to get any benefits. So I'm wondering how you expect them to pay without getting benefit.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
End of the mic, just to pick up on the live stream.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for bringing that up. So, a lot of us have family and friends living inside Hanford, Lemoore, Corcoran, and Avalon, the incorporated cities. So currently, when those 4 cities inside Kings County have a fire, Kings County fire engines, our firefighters, personnel, equipment, we're all responding. So for example, my folks' house, they live just off Fargo and Daphne, Hanford, and the fire house, there'll be 2 fire engines from Kings County responding. Currently, we'll be responding with 5 firefighters. If Measure F were to pass, we'd be responding with several more, likely 1 more per engine, so that could be 7 firefighters, and depending on the fire chief and the board that ends up administrating our funds, where they intend for the staff to do it, could be 8 firefighters from the county responding into the city to assist them on a fire there, just like anywhere else in Hanford. If, like I said, there's a larger fire.
I was wondering, if my house was on fire and whatever, I don't know how much more money I would pay in taxes to say, hey, these guys got out of here. I'm wondering why you didn't ask for more, because I feel like, I don't want to say you're underpaid or you're understaffed or under-equipped, but when your house is on fire and you've got to wait for another fireman to get there or whatever the case may be, the longer that fire burns, the more water damage you're going to have. My understanding is a lot of the damage to a fire is water damage from when they go in. So the quicker that if you have someone else to help you, can get in there, the less water you may have to spray, so you would have less water damage, which in the end result is better for everybody. And I think, and I just wonder why we have to keep our fire department so understaffed. You know, how much more money would I spend in sales tax if it takes me a dime more for every purchase? But I've got adequate police and fire protection. I'm bored. So that's more of a statement.
You made some strong points, but your original question was how come we didn't ask for more? And why, it is an important question. Why did we land on 0.5%? And why didn't we ask for more? The way that the sales tax is structured, as there's more influx of people in the county, as the county grows, so will the spending of goods and services. So as the tax revenue comes in, as there's more spending of goods and services, our revenues will also grow, and we can grow with the county instead of being at the stagnant level of funding that we have now.
But that's not necessarily true. A lot of times, the housing area, your children grow up and they move into another house in Kings County, so the population didn't increase, but you've got more structures to care for and more business. So
It's true, the county is growing at a very rapid pace.
yeah, I don't know how many people are moving into our city and our county, but I don't know whether it's the county or the city. I think we just need adequate police and fire protection. I think you guys are doing a good job, but if it takes more money out of my pocket, it's not going to be like they're asking me for $100 a month. They're asking me for 5 or 10 cents on everything I buy, which is not bad. And if you're visiting from here, so what? You're traveling through, you still get the same protection. If you have a wreck on the highway, whatever, you get the same quality protection. Thank you.
One quick question, fellas. Do you feel that the city and county is growing faster than the public safety departments are growing?
Oh, yeah. You guys can see that.
Do you think that growth probably needs to slow down until we can get our public safety up to par?
Something to keep in mind too, folks, is that, I don't know if we didn't even touch on it yet, but up until 2015, we still had one-person stations. Kings County Fire is so far behind the ball on staffing and equipment. We're trying to be to a comparable place that every other place is at. 2015, I mean, that's not that many, well, I guess it's 7 years ago. Dang. All right, well, anyways, 2015, I mean, we're this far up, and we just got out of the one-person staff station. So, and to touch on that, I mean, everybody that takes place of our protection would pay nickel or dime on what we're purchasing.
My question to you guys is, I live in rural Hanford. You guys get ready to close down Station 4 because of our great train. I moved to Lemoore for a training facility that they're building you guys. what's gonna happen with my area where, there's not gonna be a fire station close, literally, I think the closest fire station to First and Houston is probably maybe Burris Park. I'm gonna guess that's probably, you can enlighten us on that. I'm sitting here thinking, wait a minute, you guys are closing down, why don't you move that station a little away from the train? Just move it away like they did Talworks, build a new station and maybe let them, because they're gonna find you that training facility anyway, just build another station outside the area.
Couple different things, Chief Lynch will take that for you.
Richard, you answered your own question. We are doing that. We are moving Station 402 to a location on Idaho Avenue, between 8th and 9th Avenue, somewhere along that stretch.
Okay, because I hadn't heard that yet, but I heard you guys were moving literally to more of a training facility. Thank you very much.
Yep. We will maintain 10 stations in the county.
Say that again, Chief, where are you moving to?
Somewhere on Idaho, we did a station distribution study back in 2016, and it showed us some preferred locations if we got to the point where we could start moving stations that better service our service area and service the citizens. And so with the impacts to high-speed rail at the current Station 4, we negotiated a deal with them to actually, they provided funding for us to move that station onto Idaho Avenue. I don't know exactly where. We have a general area based upon our location study, but we're working to try to pinpoint a spot, and once that happens, we'll make sure everybody knows.
Okay. I'd like to know how long it takes to train a firefighter, what does it cost to train a firefighter, and who pays for it?
I'll take that. First off, it's a lifetime training. It's not something that happens one time. There's academies, there's continual training, there's continuing education, everything with firefighting, just as it is with law enforcement, just like it is with emergency medical. It's a continuous thing. And it's at least 214 hours a year, if not more, and that's an annual thing, and that's to be done with every firefighter. Who's paying for it is the fire fund. Your tax dollar pays for us to send these firefighters to be trained. These men and women are dedicated. They want the training. They go out, they seek it out on their own also. And at the end of the day, we have to train them. We are under a mandate by the federal government to provide training to them in very specific areas, and we do that annually. And then there is things that we want them to understand on our own as an entity that we actually send that training to. So it's paid for through our funding, through our fire fund, and it's through tax dollars, and we send everybody to it. And it's a lifetime. I can't express that more. It's a lifetime of training. It's not something that's done one time.
First of all, I want to thank you all for putting your lives on the line every single day. Served 30 years in the department, so, and thank you to your wives too, because I know what they put up. But anyway, you said that you had there had to be 3 firefighters at one time on a fire, but you had to wait for that 4th firefighter, right? So, does that mean that you wait a half hour for another engine to come, or do you call on another agency to come and help you?
We'll use a mutual. So we actually just did a little mini study within ourselves for response times. Around our average, keep in mind we also have Burris Park, the island, Kettleman, everything. Our furthest is Avondale in almost 19 minutes. And generally, everything else is anywhere from 13 to 15 minutes for the second arriving apparatus to be on scene.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I would just like the first gentleman that spoke, if you could just repeat how the money is going to be spent. You said 60%, 20%, and then I got lost.
He's looking for his glasses.
Oh.
Yeah, we're gonna need to. Oh, he wants here. Yeah,
that's a valid question. No, absolutely.
So 60% would be to train and hire additional firefighters. That is our greatest need in our department right now. Also, as some of these gentlemen spoke about, we're desperately struggling with engines. Our engines are desperately low right now. So 20% will be used for equipment, life-saving equipment that goes on those engines. And then the rest of the money, the other 20% would be going to our infrastructure costs. It goes without saying that if we hire more firefighters, we have to house these firefighters somehow at the stations. Our stations are very old. Some of our stations, we just have one long hallway with a bunch of beds in it and one shower for all 9 people staffed there. So we need to expand to house these firefighters, so those infrastructure costs will be covered in that 20%. There's also some listed communications and things like that, and some administrative costs. Obviously, if you hire a bulk of 30, 40 plus firefighters to serve you better, there's also additional administration costs that come along with that as far as their paychecks and span control. Yeah, so we only have one battalion chief on duty for the whole county. So we're looking to add an additional battalion chief. So if this battalion chief is in Burris Park and there's a fire in Avenel, it's very common to have happen. He has to drive clear across the county to respond, which even though there's only 2 firefighters in Avenel, the captain that's on duty in Avenel has to assume the command of that incident. He has to be on the radio, be doing his walkarounds. It really only leaves one guy to work and the captain to do what he can with an additional engine 15 to 18 minutes out. So we're in a struggling position. If I could just speak a little bit freely on the initiative too. We're very proud of this initiative, guys. This is a perfect place to talk about it too. You guys are obviously very politically passionate people. Kings County has never voted on an initiative like this. It's never been done before. Typically speaking, when we all cast our vote, it is our politicians, our leaders, they draft something on the ballot and they tell us what we want to vote for. This is the other way around. We're one of the very few states left in the country that still have this right to circulate petitions with citizens, draft this up ourselves on our own paychecks, and bring it out to the citizens, have it signed, and let us vote it on the ballot if it is a worthy cause. We didn't put this on the ballot by ourselves. The citizens of Kings County took petitions back home to their families and brought them back to us. Mostly first responders, reporters, but people that have life-saving stories about us, people that really support us, put this on the ballot for us to vote on. This right here is the purest form of democracy, and we're very proud of it. It's bulletproof, ironclad. There's never been a measure like this. It is beautiful. It will be the model for measures moving forward across the state of California. That is how proud we are of it. Our firefighters played an active role in drafting it, and it was with the very great help of 3 attorneys from the best political law firm in the state, the Olson Rochambeau. So we're very proud of this measure. We're very proud that the citizens support us so much, signing over 7,000 voters, not just people, voters that live here in the county, signed this petition. We had many more that either weren't registered or they just were from a different county that wanted to sign as well, and they just couldn't sign with us. But we're very proud, and I appreciate your question.
Thank you.
Let me sneak one in real quick. It's pretty evident that you guys need money, right? I don't think that's a question in anybody's mind that you guys need more money. If this measure doesn't pass, what is your plan moving forward? Where are you going to get that money from? Who are you going to ask for that money?
It's a good question for the chief.
Well, that just is my job. Continuous cycle of trying to find funding. We look for funding in many places where we can. I think the time has come where we have to bring it to the board even and maybe even discuss the likelihood of additional funding for the fire department. Kings County Fire Department's in kind of a unique position. It's formed on a 0.1% of property tax dollars. It was formed in 1971 as that entity, and it's still that same entity today. So 0.1% is the tax dollar that funds the Kings County Fire Department, and in today's age, I'd have to struggle. I can give you an example. This year, if we finish out the year based upon our estimates, we will have $288,000 left over to put in contingencies to move forward into July 1. So that's the struggle of the Kings County Fire.
And not to make sure that we hold everybody accountable, have you asked the Board of Supervisors for money to facilitate your needs?
We haven't solicited funding. As funding goes, we brought programs together like the 2.0 fire staffing that the board went ahead and approved and got on board with that. I see that as a funding increase because they allowed us to go out and seek funding opportunities to do that and also approve the 2.0 staffing. So that's a move in the right direction, and I want to thank the board for that.
Very good. Bob. Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah. Issue, this tax rate of 5% or 0.5 is going to generate about $8.7 million per year from the citizens of Hanford. Am I correct on that?
8.7 from just the citizens of Hanford.
All right. As I look around and hear different city councils and board supervisors and so forth, everybody is stressed out. Short money, short personnel. You're taking $8.7 million from the people of Hanford, where our same city fire department needs more help. And I'm sure they're going to come to us for a public tax coming up soon. So I have a hard time taking 8.7 from the citizens of Hanford and give it to the Kings County Fire Department. I understand, you're stressed. To me, you should go to your board of supervisors. They're responsible for you. They're the ones that need to pay you correctly, get your equipment and so forth, raise the property taxes, and need be, take care of what you need. That is your avenue of monies, property tax. Increase that. I have a hard time coming to people in Hanford to send to the Kings County Fire Department. Our department needs help too. So does more corporate and so on. That's my question.
Yes, sir. We agree on a lot of those points with you. So quite a few statements there. I'm going to try and remember to break them down. I hope I don't miss one. You said 8.7 out of citizens in Hanford. Well, I'm sure as you all know from going to Hanford stores your whole lives, you see a lot of people, a lot of new faces. Okay, so a lot of those people don't live in Hanford but shop in Hanford because Lowe's is in Hanford. When I spent 10 years living in corporate, I recently moved. There's no Lowe's there, right? I bought flooring from Robinson's, and, wood for my fences from Lowe's and Home Depot and old lumber. And we have to leave when you don't live in Hanford. You have to go to Hanford to buy most of your goods and services, right? My dentist was from Hanford, doctors. Okay, so grocery stores, Costco. And so a lot of those tax dollars, while being spent in Hanford, the people who are expending those funds, whether they come from Visalia, North Visalia to shop in Hanford, or in Selma to shop at Costco, those funds aren't captured by property tax. And property taxes are a very narrow-based tax. They only affect the relatively few people in Kings County who own property. And when our department was originally funded 75-ish years ago, our goal was just fighting fires, right? That's what we did. We didn't have emergency medical, emergency rescue. We weren't as needed to do other things. And so the wise people that funded us off property taxes because we protect property. Now that we're doing more, supporting the community in other ways, we're looking to broaden, by this measure, broaden the way that our department brings in revenue, capturing more people, not just the slim percentage of property owners, but the people at large. And like I mentioned to the other question earlier, when there's a fire in Hanford, we send 2 engines currently. I'm one of the 2 engines that goes in. And we'll work as hard as Hanford needs us to, happily, to help the citizens of Hanford, because that's what we do. We love to help. And raising property taxes is something that other departments have done. And we just felt like it was more burdensome on the narrow base of people now who are already paying for our services. And we wanted to broaden that tax base out to be different than some other fire departments that work to raise funding from just putting more burden on the property owners. If I'm missing anything.
No, pretty much. Basically, in a nutshell, what happens is any of us, we all come to shop in Hanford. I live in Corcoran, I live in Navnell, even Killeen, I'm sure comes, Huron, Kettleman, the Island District, the more, we all come to Hanford to shop. So that 8.7, I don't know if that's really a true number. We'd have to put it in to 8.7 might be generated, but how much of that number is generated from out of town folks? That's the question. Okay?
Go ahead, Doug.
My name is Doug Verboom, and before I was a supervisor, I lived on a farm on Baltimore Lake, I still live today. In 2006, I had an accident on my ranch, and one of my employees was severely injured, and he laid there in the dirt. I tried to comfort him. I called 911, fire truck was dispatched to my house. I could hear the fire truck coming from Hardwick. That's about 6.5, 7 miles from my house. City limits of Hanford are 100 feet from my property. And the nearest fire station in the city of Hanford was probably less than 3 miles. At that time, we didn't have an automatic gate agreement, we had a mutual aid agreement. King County Fire had to show up, ask for help. I could hear the fire truck coming 3 miles down 12th Avenue, missed the house, turned around and comes back. One man, by himself. He comes upon the scene, he sees this the scene, he turns around, and he tries to assess it. He waited till the ambulance got there and worked with that guy to come over and help my individual on the ground. So that was devastating. So I became a board supervisor in 2010. My first meeting in the budget hearings in July of 2011, I asked for a 2-man station. The assistant CAO at the time, her name was Deb West, threw the book at me and said, "Find the money. Find me the money." And I said, "You're going to, you find the money. I want 2-man stations." It took, they said 16, but I think it was more like 19 or 20 when we got fully staffed by 26 individuals. 26 individuals to make 2-man stations is $3 million for our budget. That's a big ask at one time. And today's economy, we can't even get 26 people if we started today. It takes us a year or two because no one wants to work. So it's a big process, and I get my hands out to these guys. They did this on their own without they didn't talk to us at all. They didn't by themselves. This is the firemen doing what's right for the community. So now we have an automatic rate agreement with the city of Hanford. So if I have an accident on my ranch, the closest station comes to the scene. So we work that out. But we didn't have good communication back in 2006, 7, and 8 with the fire department. The fire chief at the time of the city of Hanford didn't want to communicate with the King County Fire. And that needs to go away. We need to work together. I think we have a pretty good understanding now. This probably doesn't help, but the Kings County firefighters do assist Hanford firefighters. And if we do make good money out of 1 year, we can buy them a station. We can put people, our staff in their stations. And there's things we can do. It's not over for City of Hanford Fire Department. I think I'm a King County fire guy, but you know, when I'm driving down the street and I see a red fire truck, I don't know where it comes from. If it's city or county. And most people don't know. Until you have an emergency on your ranch or your house or somewhere, you don't know how important that fire truck is to your property. And we need to put this initiative through. Half a cent is not that big a deal. I live in the country, and I don't spend any of my money in the country. It all goes to the city. I spend it in Moore, I spend it in Hanford. Hell, I even go to Armand, or that's county. So, you know, this is important. I have helped these guys. They did a great job. A little disappointed they didn't come to us first, but that's good because they did all their own. These are the firefighters that are truly dedicated to the service to the people in our community. My job is to make sure that they have all the tools they need to get the job done. So as far as, you know, raising property taxes, I won't do that when I'm in office. we all pay a lot of taxes, and we need to put our finger down wherever we can and quit taking advantage of each other and get this done. So thank you.
The mic's coming around, a lot of interest is coming around. I got you mentally tagged, don't worry.
All right, so I have a question it's been brought to my attention on multiple occasions, so I figured I'd ask it. So years ago, there was a surplus of funds that were in contingency account for a rainy day. How was that funding spent, and how much was in there?
I see that handed off to the chief real quick. That's a chief question.
Well, I don't know what contingency you're talking about. The Kings County Fire Department Fire Fund has never had a contingency over $1 million in my time involvement with it. So I'm not sure what funding stream you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, like I said, it was a question that was brought to my attention on a couple of occasions, so.
Yeah, and our contingencies now have dwindled down to about $300,000, so we don't have the fund.
Okay, thank you. We're going there.
Right up here. I think we made a
Put
picture.
your hand up, where were they?
Right there, here. We'll just keep going around.
Back in the 70s, I used to be a volunteer fireman. And so it was an honor to be a volunteer fireman. As far as getting paid for any fires to be there, or let me back up. When I went to high school, they told us that we could become volunteer firemen. They showed us how to blow hose, do all sorts of basic now. If a volunteer fireman, if you guys try to fossilize anybody out of high school or anybody like that,
Yeah, there's
do they pay for them when they're going to the as a volunteer fireman, come to the fireman site?
So I started being a volunteer firefighter when I was 18 years old, my senior year, almost my whole senior year. Before, after school, in between the two jobs I worked and going to college, I went to as many college training as I could. Decent enough firefighter as a volunteer where they hired me working here. So it is a path. That was 22, 23 years ago. And so a lot of things, just personal experience. I know I'm kind of unique with my experience, but society has changed, and the attitude towards volunteerism, unfortunately, has dwindled. And maybe you've seen that in other aspects other than firefighting, right? But yes, there are other ways to interact with the local high schools. One way is that we help with the every 15-minute programs in the high schools.
Awesome program.
And it's amazing. Every 15 minutes, for those of you that don't know, is a program put on by law enforcement, and fire departments, and ambulance, district attorney's office, and local hospitals to try and show our high schoolers around prom time every year, prom time, graduation, the dangers of drinking and driving, and how their friends, themselves in the car can be gravely injured and their lives can be altered forever from all the repercussions. Your Kings County firefighters have the #1 viewed every 15 minutes program that's on the internet, on YouTube. We have over 13 million views and counting. So your Kings County firefighters, from the video we did 4 years ago, that's being shown all around the world to people about the dangers of drinking and driving. And quite a few of the Kings County firefighters participated in that, along with the people from local hospitals, ambulance companies, law enforcement, district attorney's office, and all those people too. So, and we have other programs. DJ, help me talk about the ROP.
Currently, we have an ROP program that we do for Lamar and Sierra Pacific. I used to head that. I had that program for about 4 years. And when I started wanting to, career path change, wanted to move up the ladder, I started college. I had to pass that on. I actually passed that on to Gabriel Martinez in the Hanford Fire, and he took that over.
I think this program has been 25% that has sunset date on it. I'd be more encouraged to look at it and say, so we throw money at anything, so to speak, everybody kind of like this.
If we sunset, we have to fire all the firefighters that we hired. That's why we need a sunset. We're looking at growth. We're looking at growth in the future as well. Sustainability, and trying to get us up to that 4 personnel as well. And if there is more funds, then guess what? We could add another station. We've also done a cover, what was that called, Chief? Standards of cover, where they want us to bring in new fire stations closer to where we're most populated, which would assist Hanford and others, Lemoore and other cities as well.
Are there policemen involved with the volunteer fire? Yeah, well, my dad used to be a policeman in Lindsay back in the 70s. He had a career as a volunteer fireman also. We had combined the two, right, so they could save money. But it was on their weekend, on their days off. I'm not kidding. My dad worked 7 days a week because he liked the money. So anyway, I just wanted to put that in.
Yeah, that what you're talking about is the public safety model. Lindsay is one of the agencies that's had that for many, many years. There's a few down in LA, but it's not the predominant model because there's some drawbacks to it. Who do you train as? A police officer or a firefighter? 214 hours a year for these gentlemen to be firefighters. I have to give them all that time. How much time does that leave for a police officer? I don't know. That public safety model has been tried several times, and in the hope of lowering taxes and saving money for the agencies, but in my 33 years in the fire service, I've seen that model come and go, and it hasn't really played all the way out. And I don't think it provides the true benefit that the thought, the thinking that you can cross-train people. The police officers need to do their police things, and the firefighters need to do their police things.
Before we move off the subject of volunteers, I do want to give a shout out to Little More Fire, who is 100% volunteer fire.
Sir, I'd like to address your sunset clause for a moment. So it's a big topic of conversation, right? Sunset. Nobody wants to pay it forever, but as Jason pointed out, we could be having to lay off firefighters, or at that sunset, 10 years arbitrarily, let's just say. So you're 9, and we come back, hey guys, can we get more money? Can we get more money? Do you guys want to keep hearing we need more money, or can we just ask one and done, be sustainable? That's what we're just trying to do. We don't want to keep asking. We want to do one thing that's going to be sustainable for the growth of the community, that we can properly serve all of you. That's the point. Because once you guys hit that highway or something, and when my partner and I were there for 20 minutes on a really bad accident with just the 2 of us, and vehicles on fire and everything else was going on, there was just 2 of us. What do? One more person would have made a huge difference. That's what we're asking for. Not just for ourselves, but for all of you sitting here too. That's what we're asking, sustainability, and we're not wanting to come back and keep asking. We don't like to have to be here, and we don't want to have to come back again.
Izzy, real quick, before we move on, Diane, can you pass the can around like we're in church so we can try and get this thing paid for today before everybody leaves at the end? If you guys got a couple bucks, throw in the can. Just like I addressed in the beginning, we had to move. It's going to cost us some money, so to continue on, got a couple bucks thrown in there. Go ahead, Izzy.
Real quick, Larry, if you can help me with the name. Last meeting, Monday, the COVID-19 funding that the county received. As the board of supervisors dispersed that money to the agencies. Just trying to find you some money, like a quick injection to help you guys out. Have you guys received that money?
You're talking about ARPA funding, Israel. Yeah, ARPA funding has very specific uses, and it's not to hire people or fund positions. It's to replace revenue that may be lost from economic downfall during COVID. It's to provide businesses with incentives or funding for their relief. It's provided, and this is straight out of the document because I read it just yesterday again, infrastructure for like broadband, water and sewer projects, all those types of things. That's what it funds. It does not fund and was never intended to fund positions. So my ability to get ARPA funding to offset a need that I may have is very limited. Now, I will tell you the Kings County Fire Department did get $178,000 worth of ARPA funding allotted to us, and we purchased Lucas devices, which are CPR machines that take the place of one of you gentlemen had in Bush for an hour and a half. It's a device that goes on and does CPR, almost perfect CPR. And we thought that was a good use of our funding because it allowed these men and women who work for me to not be in direct contact with possible COVID patients, standoff, distance, that type of stuff when that was the norm, and that project was approved. So that's the amount of ARPA funding Kings County Fire has gotten.
This is probably a dumb question, but you're saying you need to hire more people, nobody wants to volunteer. Where are these people going to come from? There are people who want to be firefighters, have the programs in school and stuff, but where are they going to come from? You're saying nobody wants to work.
What I was intending to say was that it's really hard for us to find and recruit volunteer firefighters who will come and do, as Chief said, over 200 hours training over here and leave their families, leave their friends at work, and lose work.
They have the same requirements we do.
They have the same requirements we do. It's really hard for us to get volunteer firefighters to come over to the right now. We're getting professional firefighters. Some of our recruiting tools, we use the internet to get job announcements out. We get people from all over the state to apply for our department. Usually, if we have how many people did we have apply for us last time, Chief?
this time, probably 26, 27.
Yeah, we've had recruitments before, different times of the year, when it's not fire season, a lot of the seasonal firefighters are living up on a mountain or a fire camp. You know, we may get several hundred people apply for us.
I was just wondering where.
It's great. So they go to community college, they do their fire academy there, their AT there, we get them, and we train them in our way to be firefighters.
Is it like extensive training?
It's difficult, yes, it's very difficult, yes, and it's a little over a year of training for the details. And it's continuous from then on. I mean, 14 hours a year, and then if we're in specialty assignments for the department, there's an amazing amount of complexity with that too. Like Jay mentioned, for hazmat response to being a wildland firefighting specialist, to equipment operators, to truck work, people who work on fire ladder trucks. There's more training with that specific work on fire engines, technical rescue. There's a lot of different specialities that require just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours of more knowledge as they go through their career. Maintain that.
First, I wanted to say thanks. I know everybody in here appreciates everything you guys do. My question was, I don't know if this was covered, so it generates basically approximately $8.7 million, approximately, rough estimate. What is your guys' current budget? Like, how much is this increasing the fraction? Is it doubling?
Our FY 22-23 budget is projected at $16.1 million. I'm not sure of the funding stream that this generates. To put 301 staffing on the county fire engines would run about just a little bit more than $3 million. So, I mean, that's what I would have to find to go put 301 staffing on the fire engines.
So my question kind of comes right off the back of that. My concern that I haven't seen is a spreadsheet that shows me what the cost of what you want is versus what the amount you're going to take in is, and if that actually matches up to be an appropriate number. Based on my calculations, and I'm not a math major, but it seems like it's going to be a little bit more maybe than what you're saying your need is right now, and I'd really like to see an itemized list that kind of spells that out.
Fire is very expensive, so that money will be spent very quickly for the equipment cost. Fire engines are pretty close to about $1 million now once we have. So those costs are going to go quick, and we have, and I have a quick review I've already rolled up, I'll hand it off to you. We have more than a dozen engines that need to be replaced, and so it's going to take some time for that funding to slowly kick in and get us on a legitimate engine replacement program that we can afford. The administration costs and the infrastructure costs will kind of just accompany the firefighters, and that 60% we're going to, luckily for the taxpayer, we're not paid very much for firefighters as firefighters go. We're about 20 to 30% below the average. So the money's going to go a long way for the taxpayer to hire more firefighters, and all of that 60% is pretty much going to be designated for that purpose. Each firefighter runs.
Yeah, well, we're cheap, the equipment's not. Chief Lynch and I last week we were talking numbers based on that, on that particular question I had. There is just immediately, there's 4 engines in our truck. 2 engines are 1996, 2 engines are 1998. The cost of those and that truck to be replaced immediately was 4.7, I think, was that the number we came up with, Chief? For just those. Now, that's just a replacement. That does not start with maintenance. That does not start with a replacement program, because in 10 years, based on our statistics, it's supposed to happen. Those move into reserve status, and it has to start all over again. Now, that's just our 5 immediates, and there was how many that we had? 12 that need it now. So we can do times 3, that we're looking at over $13 million right there. Then that doesn't include the replacement program for the stuff that's coming up next year. That's why there's, and folks get on this again, that's why there's no sunsets. Your fire department, we're not one-time people. We are continuous funding that we need that funding to continue to keep that stuff up there, to make sure that we are giving you guys the best thing that you guys deserve, and you guys deserve the best. And we're just trying to give that to you and find it any way. We're just here to ask you guys for that. That's what. And
Chief Lynch mentioned increasing our staffing to 3 firefighters per engine, so that would be bringing up the 8 stations now that are currently only 2 firefighters. But our goal here for our group, for Firefighters Association, is to have at least 1 more person per engine, and if we can, with that money, make 4 firefighters per engine, we want 4 firefighters on the engine because we can do a much better job with 4 than 3, and better than 2. And we have a study, we did a stands cover study that shows that our stations aren't in the ideal locations that where they were placed, decades and decades and decades ago. The population and call volume shifted, so we may be moving those stations to where they're more advantageous to more residents of Kings County when they call. So there could be some cost for station relocation. There's ongoing training costs. Equipment's going to break. We've had engines being hit on the highway on calls, and we may need to replace an engine. We've had engines that luckily haven't been too burned on vegetation fires, things like that. But there are things that come up in our line of work, just like every line of work, unexpected capital outlays that we're going to have to find money to spend that on. And that's something that the community board, along with the fire chief and the board of supervisors, can help allocate that money and streamline it to where it best serves the community. Also, somebody brought up earlier, I forget who it was, possibly adding, maybe we could have, if the money is there and funded and there's a need for it, having more stations to where the calls are instead, so we can do a better job to serve. So the whole purpose of Measure F is so we can do a better job to serve the community, to provide the resources that you expect to have. Fire going out as quick as possible, having as many hands needed when there's a rescue situation to get to where you do the right job. And so that's where we're coming from with, if there's surplus money, it's going to go towards helping the community in our next item on the list that we're able to do. The next active service, the next training to go to, the next group of people to hire to improve the service that we provide the community.
Very good. Very good. Next question.
First of all, I would like to thank 1776 Celebrity for having you guys here and letting us know what I obviously realize you're very passionate about this measure. I wanted to know is, if I hadn't come here, I would have not even be aware of Measure F. What have you been doing to promote this, or other than here? Because I only see a few signs out, and a lot of them are for yes, but how do you even get a sign, or how have you been promoting this?
We have a pretty comprehensive campaign strategy. We have pretty heavy opposition, so not to reveal every strategy before it gets implemented, but we have.
Those jumping out of the cave.
There are several large signs. Because this is a county-wide measure, we are advertising all across the county. So again, this is funded only by our own paychecks. Our starting firefighter makes a little over $16 an hour, and then 11% comes out for Caliber's retirement. So we don't make a whole lot, but we've saved a long time to basically put this on the ballot and be able to fund it and educate people about this cause. We've had a lot of signs pulled up and things like that. It's just part of the political realm. But we are not politicians at all. We're terrible at it, to be perfectly honest with you. We're awful, but we're giving it our best shot. We've asked a lot of people that are better at that than us what we should be doing. All of you guys probably received a mailer inside the mail. That was from us. Everything you see that says yes on that, it was funded by Kings County firefighters and our hard-earned paychecks to basically serve you guys better, not even to increase our salaries or anything, just because we believe so passionately. We see hardships every day on the job. Bad things happening on these county roads, unlit county roads, and we're forced to make hard choices over the lives of the people that we want to serve and protect. And we believe that this is a worthy cause for our own paychecks. Couldn't be prouder of these guys. We couldn't have spent, we're spending everything we have basically to fund this and educate people to keep you guys safe. You'd like to start signing up?
Okay, so I just have, maybe it's just a comment. But if I understand correctly, if going back to what some of the comments were, if this was through property tax only, property owners would be funding you.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
But if it's a county-wide or Kings County sales tax, it's 100% of anybody who buys anything.
Absolutely.
Right.
Anybody coming in.
Visitors,
people,
travelers.
Everyone that travels I-5, 41 that stops for gas, stops to get a bite to eat anywhere. Anyone that comes to the city.
So everybody would be paying something versus it's not on the backs of property owners alone. I don't want to pay more property tax.
Surprisingly enough, about 15 to 20% of the people that would have been willing signers with us, and this is out of Walmart or general locations, Target, Save Mart, things like that, roughly 15 to 20% were people that didn't even live in the county. They were influx, people visiting family, things like that. Almost all of the people traveling through Kettleman City, people traveling through Hanford to get fuel, that's all income coming in that would be captured and going to serve you guys better and protect these county roads that people are driving to and from your guys' communities.
Thank you.
I think we got 2 more questions, 3 more questions. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I got a question. The old engines, what do you guys do with them after you
That's a good
We keep them forever.
Come on out, I'll show it to you.
We have programs that we try to sell that surplus. A lot of times the surplus agencies won't take them from us. So most of our really, really old apparatus we donate to our brothers and sisters in Mexico. They do unbelievable work with it and put fires out in all over the country of Mexico.
Larry wants to buy a fire truck.
I want at least a fire hose.
Go ahead, David.
I just had a question. We keep talking about 8.7, but I believe the ballot that went out, Kings County wide, will be like $11.7 million. So if 60% of that is going to staffing or to hire new employees, the chief just said that to get the 3.0 staffing would be $3 million. So let's do another $1.5 million for training. What happens that first year, that other 2.5? Does it just sit in a reserve fund to hire 4 people per station, 5 people, 6 people per station? That's a lot of money to spend. That's $7 million, and I heard about 3 that they talked about tonight. Just curious.
No, some of that money's gonna be for the admin. So currently, right now, we have 3 BCs, 1 BC per shift, to cover the whole area of Kings County, battalion chief. And so what this would do is also hire battalion chiefs and different admin personnel as well. And the one thing that the chiefs doesn't want to get involved in is going and spend it right away without knowing what is actually coming in. And the beauty part of this initiative, how we've written it, we need people like you to sit on this board to help guide us through it. This thing cannot be manipulated. This thing is not going into general fund. This measure is going into a funding for your personnel, your apparatus, and your infrastructure.
And if it's designated in that 60%, it has to be to hire and train firefighters. That is the purpose of it.
No, I completely
Can't be going with it.
No, I completely understand that, but I think you're gonna have a hard time spending that 60% for the next several years before you hire and get the equipment.
Well, once you hire them, it's still going to be that constant cost.
No, I understand that.
okay.
I understand that. But all I'm saying is, in years 1, 2, and 3, I've just heard twice now, tonight, that it's $3 million to get to the staffing you're wanting, your 3.0 staffing.
Right.
So we didn't talk training, but you're looking at $7 million based off 11.7 million in the first year.
Yes, sir.
So there's a lot of surplus for the staffing portion. You actually don't have enough allocated to equipment. Because 20% of 11.7 is only 2.34. You're going to burn that up in three vehicles. So you're going to be waiting to get the money in for several years to replace the equipment you need and to get the staffing. All I'm saying is, where's that surplus will sit, right? Do you need it? Is that correct?
The main goal would be to hire. Right now, the minimum standard we're trying to get is 3 firefighters, but there's communities that do need to have 4 firefighters at it, and the rest of the cost would be depending on how much each firefighter ends up costing, exactly how much it is for training, because we've never hired a group this big before, so the training's going to be a little bit higher in cost. All of the surplus funds, if you want to call them a surplus, will go to be making our stations more staff.
Chief, can I get a number of what one firefighter costs annually, a senior firefighter that's been through all the training annually? What does it cost you for one firefighter?
A firefighter, now there's three ranks.
Sure.
Fire captain, fire engineer, fire,
Right.
I'm talking about in a fire station. A firefighter is about $175,000 a year. The training, gosh, it's all over the place. We do a lot of it in-house because we can't afford to send people out. But we can probably spend several $1,000s for at least $3,000 or $4,000 if we have the funding to send them off to be trained in better equipped facilities than what we actually have today.
And can you tell me how many firefighters Kings County employs right now? Or firefighters to all ranks? How many employees?
88 employees. That includes administration staff, 77 line personnel, over 10 stations. We cover 2 incorporated cities, the city of Corcoran and the city of Avenel. As was stated here, Avenel is very remote from most of our resources. So, and I apologize, that $3 million gets us to 3.0 staffing. It doesn't necessarily address the needs of some of these other communities like Avenel that maybe needs 2 engine companies in Avenel. Like Corcoran that maybe needs 2 engine companies. Corcoran's a booming city. It's one of my biggest worries as the fire chief is how do I provide service in Corcoran with the limited funding that we have. So,
One last question, Chief. What is your, and you might have covered it, but what is your annual budget? What do they provide you right now?
This year will be about, well, the FY22-23, the coming budget that will flop over in July is about $16.1 million.
Okay. Did we get everybody back, or one more in the back? 2 more.
You talk about engines and trucks. Can you tell me the difference?
You may have just read my mind, sir. So I was going to answer this other gentleman's question by talking about both of those. So there's other ways. So an engine and a truck. An engine is fire apparatus. It's a large semi-truck sized vehicle that has a water tank and a pump. And so that's an engine. And a truck can or cannot have a tank full of water and a pump. Some don't. But what it has is a lot of ladders on it and rescue tools. And so its primary job is forcing entry into the structure, all kinds of rescue, technical rescue, vehicle extrication, and ventilation of the structure, and rescue. So, for example, in the town I live in, there's a dedicated truck company, and all they do is truck company work, and they work, there's 2 apparatus at that station. There's an engine company there that does what an engine company does, and there's a truck company that does what a truck company does. And so they're very different jobs, so when they show up on a fire, the engine company crew can go do things like pull hose to the fire, establish a water supply at a hydrant, and then the truck company can do things like starting to open up the structure, let the hot heat and smoke out to make it more survivable for the victims, and the working environment that isn't several hundred degrees for the firefighters inside, opening locked doors and windows to make it to where we can escape if we can trap one portion of the room. So there are different ways that fire departments spend large portions of money, and I'm not sure the way that I'm not the fire chief, how the fire chief would ask or suggest to the committee ways that he would want to spend the extra funding for staffing. He may want to staff a separate truck company. He may want to add a second engine company to a location. Other departments like CAL FIRE and Kern County Fire staff seasonal firefighters in the places where they have a large impact like wildland urban interface areas. So there are a lot of different ways where fire departments in our valley use staffing on their apparatus. And I would imagine if we had the funding that Measure F was available, a whole new way to serve the community in greater ways than we do now would open up for us. And that's something as we do it, we would learn what works. What doesn't work, we would look to our neighboring departments and cities to see how they serve their communities, and they have more funding than we do. And I hope that answers both those questions for you guys.
Quick. Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say, or ask, you guys are doing a lot of late work in trying to promote this measure. Will you be allocating the funds, or who's going to, the money that is received with this measure, who is going to allocate? Do you have a say in where those funds go? Or is it the Board of Supervisors, the fire chief, in the whole budgeting process? And also, I think you guys could be very underpaid. Will you be asking also for some sort of a pay raise of some sort so you guys can have that, bear a lot of the money and income?
Sorry, there's multiple questions. One, who decides how this money is spent? You're looking at it right here. The chief would be allotting to what we need as far as additional firefighters, what type of engines we purchase, things like that, which stations get upgraded to house these firefighters. Those line items would then get approved by the oversight committee made up of 4 citizens who do not hold elective office, 2 Kings County firefighters, either retired or active duty, and 1 auditor So those would be the people that are designed to protect this money, so it serves its great cause. As far as pay raises are concerned, it doesn't affect our pay in any capacity. We would still continue to negotiate with, just like our usual negotiations as a union, to try and increase our pay raise, but that will be on our own end. That has nothing to do with this bill.
So no pay raises will come from this measure?
No, and we're under contract for the next 2 years.
It's outlined in the
It's
measure.
outlined in the measure.
Okay.
Yeah, so what you see on the ballot is the ballot title and summary. That is the non-biased summary produced by the county council for people to vote on. It's non-persuasive. It doesn't have any bias for or against. The real measure is an 11 to 12 page document. It's quite comprehensive. Most of it is written in word lingo and it's outlined in the measure.
Go ahead, Justin.
First off, thank you guys very much for everything you guys do. The citizens of Kings County really appreciate everything that you guys do for this entire county. For gentlemen that did numbers, I'm a numbers guy, so just want to confirm. 5,100 calls for service a year, is that correct, roughly?
Correct.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, 10 stations?
Correct.
So if you average that out, that's about 1.4, high rise about 1.5. So 1 and 1.5 calls for service. Each fire station responds to control 24 hours a day.
Right, yeah, I wish. So, no, and I don't mean to be cute about that. No, the truth is that most of the calls that need, we don't have enough firefighters on our engines to handle every call with just one engine, right? So, structure fire has 4 to 5 engines that respond to it for normal. You know, it gets into a larger structure, we'll have several more engines coming. You know, and that's a drawdown on our department, and of course, neighboring departments that can help also. And increasing staffing on engines might reduce that load on our system, on the regional system, okay? Because we have bodies at the fire, we would need to call them from so far away. So calls like vehicles on fire, that's 2 of our engines, so that's 2 engines rolling. Vehicle accidents are 2 to 3 engines, and if it gets really complex, of course, we'll call more. You know, even a dumpster fire is a couple of engines, and you know, it gets the 5,100 calls a year for service. There are some calls that last a relatively brief amount of time, and there's some that last days. So it's really hard to put it down how many calls per company per day. It's a dynamic number that moves from year to year, from month to month, and from day to day. And then, of course, the really weird stuff happens when it's regional fires that we see people from all over the valves and engines to things like that. So, that was a good question. Thank you.
Okay, also, the cities of Portland and Avenel, you guys are the fire department that gives them resources. You guys have a contract with those cities, correct? Correct. So would you guys be able to up that contract to get the 4 or the 3 firemen staffing? Or is that something that the board of supervisors has to do? If you're only having 2 firemen, like you said, it's a fireman safety issue. Why aren't we, or why isn't the Kings County Fire Department telling the cities of Portland and Avenel that we need to up the staffing to charge them more?
Good question, Justin. Currently, right now, the city of Corcoran pays 100% of their direct costs for firefighting. There are 3 on staff. The city of Avenel is in a different situation. They spend most of their funding on water, fighting to get water out of either from the state project, federal project, wherever it is. They pay their portion that we negotiate, and it's approved by the board of supervisors on how much that amount is. That's one of the reasons why they're still low staff. They do not have the funding to go out to 3 or 4 staffing in their fire service. That's the reality.
Two quick questions. You guys brought up a lot of good things, dilapidated equipment, stuff that's been in service since 1996, so we're looking at 25 years. fire trucks, fire engines, and so forth. Correct me if I'm wrong, some of the ARPA funding can be used to purchase that type of equipment, such as the fire trucks and fire engines.
That is not, you can't do that, no. Infrastructure projects related to sewer, water, computer, internet, Wi-Fi, those type of things. I have not seen any allowable amount that's given to buy fire trucks or fire engines. If you're lucky enough to get CDGB money, you might try to do some of that, but there is nothing that I have seen personally in ARPA funding that allows that.
Okay. And last question, you guys, with that, with the severe shortage of staffing and the dilapidated equipment and everything else, obviously that's a big safety issue. It's a firefighter safety issue, not being able to have no firemen to respond to calls for service. At what county board of supervisor meeting was that brought to their attention to give them direction to be able to fix this issue for the county firefighter?
Are you talking about the 2-0 staffing, Justin, or?
No. What you guys are asking for, you're asking for the housing and subsidies. Obviously, we're looking at the 3-0 staff and the 4-0 staff. So with that, obviously, these are big issues in the dilapidated equipment, 1996 equipment that should have already been reallocated at this point in time to be able to go on budgetary issues. When was this brought to the Board of Supervisors meeting to allow them to know that this is a firefighter safety issue, saying, hey, two firemen responding to a call for service is not safe. We need these extra firemen. We need this equipment to be able to do our jobs correctly. When was that given to them to be able to correct this issue?
I can only speak from my time with the county. It started back in 2015 when we were still one of staff fire stations, and I brought a plan forward to the CEO and the board of supervisors to go to 3-0, 4-0, whatever we could do, and we were lucky to get the 2-0 staffing, and they agreed upon that. Like I said, I thanked them for that. That meant a 50% increase in protection for my people. But I mean, the conversations have continued over a period of years. In my hiatus there for 4 years, I'm not sure what the fire chief then brought up, but on my return, we continue to still talk about staffing daily, especially with the administration, to try to figure out ways to fund it. So there hasn't been a formal presentation, if that's what you're asking, Justin, about 3-0 staffing. The board knows about 3-0 staffing and 4-0 staffing from 2015, and also the documents that we created, the standards and cover and those type of things that we created to justify that need.
So, Mr. Reville, with that, like you said, that is the county board of supervisors responsibility to deal with the equipment and the staffing they need. What is the board doing to rectify this?
Yeah, we're always short of money.
Microphones.
Yeah, thank you. Good question. We're always short of money all the time. And if you go back to what I said earlier, back in 2006, we had trucks breaking down going to fires. And so we're trying to catch up from a long time of nothing happening over the years. And stuff wears out. I mean, 1998, I don't call it velocity, I call it vintage. Everything can be fixed, but at the same time, the town's growing pretty fast, the community's growing pretty fast. And we get a lot of medical calls, not as many fire calls that I think we should have, but I'm not a fire guy. So we're moving on, and the equipment wears out, and we're just trying to make up for lost time. Nothing was done for years. I don't know if you saw the old green fire trucks. They're almost all faded out now. But I don't know how long, look like a span of a fire truck. 20 years, 15 years?
The ones that built.
I can only get 5 years out of a work truck. So, and you know, they need that truck for emergency personnel all the time. You don't understand how bad it is. I mean, you're a fire police officer, so you understand. People in need, you know, they need that help right there. And until you're in that position, you don't understand. So, yeah, we're doing all we can. I mean, our budget is big, and it increases every single year. And everybody wants a piece of it. I think we got 18 department heads, and they all want a piece of it. Each one blaming the other one for taking all the money. The sheriff is the biggest one. He takes most of our money. Fire is way down there, but yeah, we're doing what we can to kind of balance it out. This will really help. You know, like I said, I wouldn't understand it at all until I had an emergency on my ranch. And that really got my attention, because I didn't have equipment. So that's just the way it goes.
Do you know how much you have to use
Hey, Justin,
Yeah,
we can set up debates, but that's not tonight. Let's go ahead and pass it off the Matt.
Our reserve fund is pretty minimal, and our general budget items, we hardly have any money to play with. And the state tells us what to do, and I don't know if you've heard what the state does, and they're not real friendly to our community.
Kevin wants to, good, Kevin wants to follow up on that.
The incident that happened on Ramoon's Ranch was in what year?
06.
06. I got hired in 2004, and I spent several years at the firing station. The engine that responded to his call was in 1978. Our problems that are happening in our department right now, they're not this stem from what's happened recently. This has been several years and years and decades. Fuel prices rising, maintenance fees. That rig was 29 years old, the first top unit rig that responded to his residence. I was 30 at the time, driving a unit that was 29 years old. These problems aren't stemming from our current fire chief. They're stemming from years and years and years of everything rising up except our budget.
Hey, give it to Matt Carpenter real quick. He's been, okay. Overruled.
Personal question, I just wanted to know, I didn't hear this in previous question, how many personnel are you going to add to the ADA that would get up the staffing of the church?
We'll actually have to add probably at least, I think, I want to have the numbers, let me tell you. And again, this is just adding staff for fire. This does not include administration, overhead.
Can you identify yourself?
Yeah, Assistant Chief Josh Cunningham.
Thank you, Josh.
So like Chief Lynch said, it's $180,000 for a top step firefighter. To answer your question, Nathan, $3 million comes on 24 firefighters at the bottom step. It's actually $4.8 million when they step out in 4 years. And that's just to get to minimum staffing. Anyone that's worked in ICS knows the span of control is 3 to 7. Right now, there's one battalion chief for 25 employees. So when we add another 8 people for shift, that's going to blow the span of control even bigger than what it is. So that $4.8 million is just for firefighters to add 3 staffing on all the equipment. We haven't come up with exact numbers because we don't know what the exact amount is going to be. There's speculation from the city, from the county, somewhere between 10 and 11 million. So that's, if we said $10 million, that $6 million would be 60%. By the time you add battalion chiefs in there, a couple office staff, there would be more time cards, more workman's comps, more scheduling stuff, more budget. This initiative, if it passes, has to have its own set of books to be audited every year. So it's going to take, we have one finance person in our department. So it's going to take hiring a second finance person just to run up books just on what's going on Measure F so that we can keep exact tally of it. So we run the department on 2 books, our actual working budget and the Measure F budget, so that when we get audited, we can actually have full transparency of what's going on. That's just to get to 3.0 staffing. We'd like to get some of the other stations to 4.0 staffing. We'd like to go down the middle of the core of the county, stations 4, 5, and 7, and Corcoran and Avenel. And those are all the stations that respond to Hanford and Lemoore. But we can't make any promises because we don't know what the number is. We've just been given some estimates on what it's going to be, 10 to 11 million. So that $3 million is just to get the 24 firefighters off the ground. But once they step out and pay, it's going to be like 4.8 million. And we're looking at like, if you go 10 million on conservative, I like to beat conservative numbers. That's $6 million we have to spend on staffing by the time we hire a couple more office staff, 3 battalion chiefs, and try to staff up a couple engines of 4.0 staffing. That's $6 million on.
So you're looking at adding about what, 24?
To get to 3.0 staffing, it's 24. Right now, there's 10 stations. Only 2 of them have, 2 2 of them have 3 staffing, so there's 8 stations that need it, and there's 3 shifts, so 8 times 3 is 24, so we need to add 24 firefighters to get the 3 staffing. And then we'll, as the money comes in and we get some projections on what it is, we'll be able to adjust the staffing levels to what the measure actually gives us. We don't want to go out and hire 40 firefighters and the money's not there because then we have to lay people off. We're going to do it on a conservative approach. Go for 3 staffing first, and then start pushing for 4 staffing in the communities that run more calls and that we can service more people in the communities.
All right, last question, I believe, is Matt. Save the best for last.
So my question is, how come you guys did not only include law enforcement in this?
Ooh, who's going to take the mic?
That's kind of the rumor that's been spread around. Something like we don't want to work with law enforcement. We didn't want to include law enforcement in this measure. It's not entirely true. It was discussed in our very first meeting about just whether we include law enforcement, whether we just do a firefighters only initiative. It wasn't the reason why we did this alone. It was not because we didn't want to include law enforcement. It was just that Hanford City was already going to do it with law enforcement. We wanted to do a firefighter only measure. The other major fire department that was in need of funding didn't want to join us, and so that just left us to do it on our own. You know, we didn't include the roads department. We didn't include any kind of public works departments either. This is just for one purpose, and I honestly like it better just as one purpose. There's many times where we all vote for things on the ballot, and the money is allotted to 3 or 4 different departments, 12 different items, all these different sectors, and you might agree with one, but then maybe not agree with how the money is divvied up, or you might support one, but you want one money to go here and there, and then it gets voted down. That's what's happened to measures in the past. Right here in this county, we've put on 4 measures in the past in this county that have all included all kinds of multiple agencies. They've been shot down, so this time we have a very desperate need, a very worthy cause. Has nothing to do with our love of law enforcement. Of course, we love and we support law enforcement. We work very closely with them alongside. Would you like to add anything to that?
And we were trying to just fix our bleed. We got a sucking chest wound. We need some help. We need to get the staff in. We need to provide a better service for you guys. And we didn't want it to go to the general fund. So that's why we thought, hey, let's work for just us on this. Let's earmark some money for fire that has longevity. It's going to outlive me. It's going to outlive my kids. It's going to outlive all of us. It's going to be able to provide a service for our community. Our community.
Before you guys give your closing statement, I just want to ask one other question. We've talked a lot about 3-0 staffing, right? Can you tell me, Tulare County, Kern County, what is their staffing level at? Are they at 3-0 or are they at 2-0?
So, okay, on the mic, Kern County is staffed with 3 to 4 people, depending on the apparatus in the area. Okay, and that department, the way they cover a lot of small cities in Kern County. I think there's only 3 metropolitan fire departments in Kern County. It's California City, City of Bakersfield, and then Kern County covers like Taft, Delano, Wasco, all of those small towns, similar to how we provide a contracted service to corporate now during our incorporated cities. So Kern County is a staffing model I can see our department following if the measure passes. It would make a lot of sense. Tulare County is fortunate that they have a much larger population in their county than we do in Kings, and they are still able to have several large volunteer groups who participate with them as big haul firefighters. They're not as engaged and fully staffed as like a Wilmore City Fire Department, you know, who has a lot of help and a lot of great guys that show up. So Tulare County is having the same problem where they're having a reduced number of firefighters, so they're upping their staffing as well. So they've got, how many stations are Tulare staffed? We've got a handful, they have a lot more stations than we do, but they have a handful of stations. They're starting to get 2-person staffed as well. And, in Fresno County is split up into several different rural fire districts. One rural fire district that recently went through a restructure and had some funding come in is North Central Fire Protection District. They're like a smaller Kings County, like a half size, and their engines are staffed with 4 persons.
All right, thank you. You guys have a closing statement, or you about got it all out, David?
We got it all out.
Thank you very much for your time. No, we appreciate you guys coming. I think this, and last week's speakers, it really put out all the information out to the community and let the community decide whether what's best for the community. I will say that I don't think there's any question that you guys need more funding. And I agree that Hanford Fire, and Hanford PD need more funding. I think all of our public safety needs more funding. I don't think that's a question. People just have to decide of how they want to fund that and what works best for them. But yeah, like I said, I appreciate all the chiefs coming out. You guys spending your time to educate us and educate the public. You know, we have a few people here, but we have lots that are watching the live stream, and those people are much educated, better educated than they were before today's meeting. So I appreciate it. I also want to say thank you for the public officials that we've had here today and at the last meeting. We've had several city councilmen, board of supervisors, we've had mayors, we've had city managers, and that means a lot that they're just as concerned as we are where our money goes and how it's being funded and the needs of Kings County and Hanford. And it means a lot that they're here to listen to your guys' needs and issues, and that's what we want to see from our elected officials, is participation in fixing what we have here. So I appreciate that. Let's give everybody a hand. Joseph, let's close it out with prayer as usual.
Father, again, we come to you in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. We thank you for the county fire department coming and sharing this information, helping us to make a better judgment than we will on the address. We thank you for the Sons of Liberty, Lord, for all the men and women that come together, volunteers of their time, their energy, even money out of their own pocket, Lord. We thank you for moving upon our hearts. And we pray that you awaken groups of people all over our country to not to take the freedoms that we enjoy, not to take them for granted, but help us all to participate, awaken the hearts and minds of the citizens all over our country. Help us to be involved in the political decisions that are made in our behalf. And again, we thank you for the firefighters, Lord, that keep us safe. We thank you for their willingness to bring this together and inform us of the issues that are before us. Give us a safe journey home. Grant to us mercy. And again, we thank you. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Hey, don't forget volunteers for our new flags. I need them.
All right, well, tell Lisa hi.